Stanley Kubrick's Path of Glory is an undeniable masterpiece from the then 28-year-old director. A spectacular interpretation of the 1935 book by Humphrey Cobb, Kubrick at this tender age already cemented himself as one of the best filmmakers of all time. In the words of the great Roger Ebert, Stanley Kubrick entered the ranks of great directors, never to leave them. But the atrocities Kubrick shows aren't that of bloodshed on the battlefield, but instead an examination of betrayal and cowardice. He shows us an exaggerated look at war's dehumanisation through generals who have no honour and only look at their own paths of glory rather than serve their country's needs. This is a tale as old as war itself. And to talk about war, even through the lens of fiction, does not mean we ignore the real world. The brutal violence that war provides can bring the feeling of numbness. News cycles with constant updates and a death count that continues to rise can bring a sense of fear, which gives the excuse to hide in escapism. To look away, because that way you don't picture the faceless people who have lost their lives with their real face, real eyes, and what was once a real smile. But sometimes that escape can highlight the travesty and provide another opinion on what is happening in the world. Because Path of Glory shows us behind the guns and warfare is just people. People forced into battle and those that use them as pawns for their own selfish gain. The greedy nature of those in power gets consumed by the chance to be an eternal figure as it dangles in front of them, blinding their vision to only seeing one path. For the film, that is shown through the character of Brigadier General Paul, tasked by General George Bullard to capture a dangerous bit of land called the Anthill just to relieve some criticism the French army is receiving from the press. At first, the general was tentative, even understanding that this would be an impossible mission.
Absolutely out of the question. My division was cut to pieces. What's left of it is in no position to even hold the anthill, let alone take it.
However, those fears faded away as soon as a promotion was on the cards, if successful.
Talk around headquarters is that you are being considered for the 12th Corps.
The 12th Corps?
Yes, and with that another star.
His pushback that many men will perish mutated into a badge of honour for the soldiers, which he would then use against them for the failures to succeed in their attack, calling them cowards as they refused to comply with his orders.
Colonel Dax, I'm going to have 10 men from each company in your regiment tried under penalty of death for cowardice.
With his promotion fading away and the embarrassment of failure creeping in, the general resorts to desperation with his attempt to fire missiles at his own men.
Order the 75s to commence firing on our own positions.
His lack of empathy towards the soldiers highlights his losing grasp of the battle, and his desperation fuels him to commit a war crime that he then tries to cover up. He shoulders no responsibility for the failure of a mission that was never going to succeed, and instead of praising the brave soldiers that fought valiantly, he accuses them of being cowards and to be court-martialed. 3 soldiers chosen by their supervisors, 3 soldiers who committed themselves to the cause, became 3 soldiers fighting for their life. Ironic, because these 3 probably thought they would die on the battlefield by the enemy holding the gun, not by their own. One soldier called Corporate Paris was chosen by a senior named Lieutenant Roger. Kubrick does not hide anything within Roger's character, plain and simple, he is a coward. During a night watch, he takes Corporate Paris and another soldier with him. There he orders the soldier to go on a lookout, and out of fear of hearing gunshots, the lieutenant throws a grenade at his soldier's direction and kills him. To save himself of the crime, he nominates Paris to be court-martialed as he was the only witness to his cowardice. A deplorable act to hide the truth, it is once again the selfish acts that Kubrick highlights throughout Paths of Glory. Just like General Paul, the lieutenant brings his soldier to the slaughter like he was just an animal ready to be butchered. To both of them, these soldiers are nothing more than pawns to be used, and once dead, will be replaced by the next batch.
What artillery support can you give me?
Well, I'll see.
What about replacements?
We'll see what we can do, but I feel sure that you can get along with what you have.
But in the acts of betrayal stands one man that fights for what little humanity there is left. Colonel Dax, played by Kirk Douglas, is the glimmer of hope that Kubrick needed in this film. Dax is there to bring some sense of sanity to the hearing. He tries to provide the judges with factual interpretations to what happened during the failed attempt to seize the anthill. Providing some context hopefully means the judges can get an unbiased view on what really happened that night. But the injustice is already set in place, and to dislodge their views of guilt becomes a frustrating task and becomes a shambles as the judges dismiss everything the 3 soldiers have to say, and for the calm colonel, he combusts into a speech fueled by outrage, highlighting the nonsense that is going on.
The case made against these men is a mockery of all human justice.
Kubrick's use of Colonel Dax is a way for him to express the nonsensical slaughter of innocent people that happens during war. A voice of reason to show how absurd it is that men fighting for their country will be executed by their country. This shows us the brutal nature of war through their comfortability with killing their own soldiers, and contrasts Colonel Dax and the 3 soldiers' courage with the general's cowardice. And as feared, the judges ignored the truth and sentenced the 3 soldiers to death.
Execution will take place at 7 o'clock, according to the verdict of the court-martial.
Colonel Dax chooses Lieutenant Roger to lead the execution, and in his nature he dismisses the request, not wanting to be the man to actually kill the soldiers.
I have to pick someone to be in charge of the firing squad tomorrow. Do you have any objections to taking the job?
Me, sir?
But Dax forcefully puts the pressure on him to accept, and in a sense this was his execution, a guilty verdict given by the colonel so that Roger can no longer hide the truth and show the people that he is a murderer. And then for the general, his promotion is snatched away from him as his truth is revealed that he tried to shoot a missile at his own troops.
Oh, by the way, Paul, it's been brought to my attention that you ordered your artillery to fire on your own men during the attack on the anthill.
2 truths shown and acted upon, while 3 truths were dismissed, showing the corrupt and self-serving nature of war. Kubrick ends the movie with a bittersweet conclusion to the film. With the 3 soldiers shot, Colonel Dax gets back to his work and must gather his troops. He sees them clustered together in a tiny tavern, and before ordering them back, he allows them a small sense of relief. They are all drinking, and the tavern owner brings out a young German lady who is forced to sing in front of them. At first they are rowdy, enjoying her uncomfortability in the situation, but as she soon begins her song, the soldiers quiet down and they begin to listen, with a few shedding a tear. This is Kubrick's last message in the movie, that there is still humanity within the corrupt nature of war. Colonel Dax allows them to keep their last grasp of being a human, to not feel anger but instead love for each other and even for the enemy. However, the colonel will have to put these soldiers on the front line again to risk their lives for the corrupt generals he was fighting against. In the end, Stanley Kubrick discusses the futility of war. He highlights that it isn't about peace or protection, but rather personal gain that war provides to those who do not let anything get in their paths of glory.